where he continues to work today as an Associate Creative Director. Charlie is responsible for branding and communications for local clients such as Renza and Union Bank, as well as national accounts in the outdoor recreation industry. He resides in Lincoln with his wife and their 3 living. Welcome, Charlie.
Hold on, I got to grab my equipment up here. I'm going to go no mic if that's okay. Is that all right? Everybody hear me fine? Okay. They had the cool Timberlake mic. I wanted to use the cool mic. So thanks for having me. It's really nice to be here, nice to be in your wonderful space, and thank you for lunch and for inviting me here. And I think normally when I start, I like to tell people what I do for a living, and that can be a little bit difficult. Sometimes, if I say I'm a creative director, people who work in advertising know that, that means I work with our artists and our writers, help come up with kind of the idea for the campaign, sell that through to clients. That's what we do. People who don't work in advertising, sometimes I'll just say, okay, I came up as a writer, producer, so I've written 1 million print ads, TV spots, radio spots, websites, pretty much everything. And so I'll tell people, well, I'm a copywriter. I do broadcast production. I produced a lot of TV spots, hiring actors, finding film companies, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times, anytime I go through what it is that I really do for a living, eyes kind of glaze over because it's sort of this nebulous title, and people are like, well, do you do like Mad Men stuff? And I'm like, not really. Some of the work's kind of the same, but the environment is a little bit different. So the easiest way to tell people what I do generally is to say, okay, have you been to Runza? And most people, at least around here, go, yeah, I've been to Runza. I say, okay, when you pull up and there's a sign out front and it's got some kind of goofy, ridiculous saying on it or a pun or whatever, my job is that I write those. That's what I do for a living. And when I tell people that, they're like, okay, yeah, I like Runza. Runza's good. And then that's pretty much the end of the conversation. So I've written, I think, I don't know. I was trying to calculate it. I think it's got to be over 1,000 of these over the years. We write them for every single promotion. We write them. I usually write about 20 or 25, and then I kind of narrow it down to about 10, and we send it over to the good folks at Runza, and they cross out a couple that are not allowed. And then sometimes I'll try to sneak one in just to see if they're paying attention, and they are.
I'm glad to know that you do that, because there was one in Omaha that said our cinnamon rolls and our chili rocks or something like that.
Oh, that's nice.
The manager there was incredibly creative and probably.
Actually, I'm really glad that you said that, and I was going to come to this. I write most of them, but what happens is they send the thing out to the stores. The stores can pick which ones they want to use. If they want to write their own, they can, and that's one that they wrote. So that guy is actually very clever, or lady, is very clever. That's not me. I'd like to take credit for it, but I won't. But that's what we kind of like. We sort of created a kind of fun thing for them to do. Sometimes their employees go and write them. Sometimes they write ones that get them in trouble with corporate. Corporate has to say, Charlie, you didn't write that, right? And I said, no. And then they do it. So these are some that I actually did write. And we have a lot of fun with them. There's kind of a purpose to them. We make them specific for different promotions. Some of them I think are funny or whatever that other people don't. Like I thought this was very funny, and my art director on the account was like, you just rhymed 3 words. I was like, I know. But so they're very subjective. This one people really liked because I think people have turned against the man bun. We like to work pop culture references into things when we can because those are fun and get people's attention a little bit. So anytime you can work a little Sir Mix-a-Lot in there or some Spice Girls for those of us from the 90s. It was brought to my attention recently that this was either the 2nd or 3rd Spice Girls related marquee line I had sent to Runza. The client there was like, do you love the Spice Girls? I'm like, I think they just are good for puns. But anyway, so we do kind of branded ones, we do specific promotional ones, and this has sort of become this weird thing that is. Am I moving around too much, by the way? Are you all right? I'm a pacer. Okay. It's become sort of this weird thing where people who know me and friends of mine, and sometimes if people ask what I do, somebody else will answer, like he writes the signs outside of the Runza, as if it were my entire job, which would be great, but it's not. And it's kind of this, not a claim to fame, but like a weird, just sort of local, you know, factoid thing. And again, I don't write them all, but I do write quite a good bit of them. And you know, Runza likes to put them up on social media. They do really well on social media. This one has, you know, a bunch of likes and shares and comments, and you know, we track their engagement on everything, and stuff like this does really well. I also get people that I know that I get text messages like this about every week or two. That's from my cousin. He doesn't really text me about anything else ever, but I just got this text message out of the blue. And that happens a lot. And I even get messages sometimes from my mom. That's my actual mom. And it's a Facebook conversation. This is a very like terse Facebook conversation. I think we're both on our phones. But you? Guilty. Funny. Thanks. There's a lot of these things that just happen. I just get these little notes all the time. And so people always say, they're like, well, you must really like doing that. It must be really fun. And I do. And my mom likes them, and my cousin likes them, and my friends like them, and people on Facebook seem to like them. And that presents a little bit of a problem, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. And the problem is that what you like doesn't matter. With all due respect to my mother, what she likes matters. She's my mom. And why I say that is because sometimes when we talk about the type of creative work we do, and we talk about campaigns that we're doing, when we evaluate things, when we give feedback, we have sort of gotten into this habit of making things pretty surface level and making things pretty subjective. And the number one piece of feedback I hear on something is, I like this or I don't like this. And when we do that, we create some problems that does not enable us to make the work better. It does not enable us to get the job done the right way. So my job is not making things people like. If they happen to, then, well, it's not making things that I like, let me say that. And my job is also not the Mad Men environment of everybody having sat at the same table for 4 days and chain smoking cigarettes and having takeout food and beer in the morning and scotch in the afternoon and casual misogyny. That's sort of like the old school stereotype. The new school stereotype is that the creative department is a bunch of kids rolling in at 10 a.m. and sitting around the table that's got Legos on it, and they're coming up with fun ideas and just brainstorming and really having a good time, whatever. There's a little bit of that too. But most of what the job is has nothing to do with us coming up with just fun stuff and us coming up with cool things and things that we think are funny or whatever. Most of the job has to do with what I would refer to as sort of a commercialized empathy. Most of what we do in marketing, most of what we do as a creative department is about trying to get in somebody else's shoes, figure out how they think, and get them to do something. So for every Runza sign that I make that's something that I like and I think is cool or funny or whatever, I also have to make something like this. Your boat and anchors your boat in while you fish. Don't worry, there's no dialogue, so I'm going to talk over this guy. This client in particular had some issues with durability. The market had a perception that some of their products weren't as durable as they said they were. So they went back to the drawing board and they re-engineered and they reworked on things. And they said, okay, it's called Talon. Talon's back, it's super tough, it's really amazing. We need to do something that proves to people how tough this thing is. And so we had this guy come in and hit it with a flamethrower. And then we had him shoot it with a shotgun. And we had him get in a truck and drag it around. We had him hook it to an ATV and peel out and try to break the thing in half. We dropped it off of a couple stories. And every time we did, we would put it back up there. And that's how the anchor anchors your boat in. And every single time, it would pass the test. So this is called the Talon torture chamber. Without knowing me terribly well, you can probably guess that dude and the people who watch this are not much like me. I am not a super tough guy. I don't own a boat. I'm not a great fisherman. Every once in a while, I'll try to catch something off the dock at my parents' house, and I usually just get the line snagged, and then I give up and go swimming with my nieces and nephews. I'm not warehouse, tough guy, rugged, alpha male dude at all. But I made that, and I made all the other videos that go with it. When I do that, I'm making those not in the context of, okay, well, I like this, so it's the right thing to do, but in the context of what's that person going to like. Same thing when I work on stuff related to hunting. I work on a lot of outdoor recreation. Sometimes that involves hunting. This is a thing we did for Cabela's Club, the Visa program through Cabela's. And we wanted to capture anglers, fishermen, hunters who are really passionate about what they did and give them the message that, hey, with the Cabela's Club Visa card, every time you buy stuff, you earn points. With those points, you can get gear, and then you can go do the thing that you're passionate about. So we have a little accepted here thing, more access to the outdoors with every purchase. And then this dude over here, who, again, I'll reiterate, I am not like in any way. He will get up and cover himself in stuff that masks his scent and put face paint on and camo gear, of which I own none, and takes a gun to a tree stand at 4 in the morning and waits for a deer to walk by and hunts it. And literally no part of that process is appealing to me in any way. I want to get up that early, I don't want to shoot something, I don't want to wear camo. It doesn't appeal to me at all. So when I'm making that stuff, the job is not to go, well, I like this, so here's what we're gonna sell this guy. Here's how we're gonna talk to him. The job is never that. I'll give you one more example on the videos. Hold on.
All hail the road less traveled, and the adventurer who takes it. And give it up for the unmapped, the unknown, and the untamed. And for the explorers who call those places home. Let's hear it for hard work, and for those who can't quit until the job is done. They are what drive us to make the only vehicles worthy of the greatness of the great outdoors. Vehicles that do the dirty work and don't mind getting dirty. Born wild and free, with an independent streak, and the will to dominate any challenge. We are Bad Boy Off-Road, and we are driven by the bold.
Okay, so that's out of character for me, as you might guess. I'll give you an example of how out of character that is. So this is a brand that we worked on that makes these four-wheelers. They just rolled out this whole new brand this last year. They rolled out this new vehicle, and they were having this big dealer meeting in San Antonio. So they had all their dealers come to this ranch, and they're like, hey, come check out the new Stampede, drive it around, go on the trails, whatever. And the ad agency people went because, we went and we made the stuff and we wanted to see how it did. And we're like sitting around at the end of the day, and there's like 5 of us sitting there. There's nothing for us to do because this is all just dealers test driving this vehicle. And we're like, that looks pretty fast. And we're just kind of sitting there and like, okay. And then at the end of the day, they're all done. Everybody's all dusty and muddy and like sweaty, and May in Texas and whatever. And these things are going all over the place. And the guy comes over and he's like, comes to the ad agency people, and he's like, hey, you guys want to take a spin in it? And we're like, all right. And I thought, like, I'll just ride I'll just ride along. It'd be kind of cool. And we got over there, and he's like, hands me a helmet and goggles and like something I have to pull over like my neck. He's like, otherwise all the dust will get in there and get in your lungs. I was like, oh, all right. He's like, well, go get in the driver's seat. And I was like, I don't want to do that at all. But the other person who was riding with me was our designer, and she absolutely was not going to drive it. So I got to drive it. And the guy comes over and he's like, he kind of sticks his head in there. And he's like, all right, you're gonna come through this river. When you do that, you're gonna shift down a second. Then when you get up to this hill, you're gonna shift up to 4th. And he like just is like a NASCAR pit crew guy screaming stuff at me about cars. My knowledge of vehicles is that like you put the key in and it goes. And he yells all that stuff to me. He's like, you got it? And I said, how do you shift it? And he looked at me like, you're gonna die. You're for sure gonna die on this. That's me, but that's not obviously who we're talking to. When we have to make this stuff, we have to get into the mindset of that guy. I have to go find the gravelly voiceover guy. I have to get the music produced that feels like it fits along with that. I have to write a script that feels like it connects to those people. I have to oversee the imagery and the edit of all that stuff so it connects. So ultimately, we get to the question of, what am I actually doing? And I think the way that I can answer that best is 2 things. Everything that we do in the creative department, everything we do in marketing is about catching attention and getting you to do something. That's it. Oversimplify everything all the way down what we do. Whether I'm working for Runza or Bad Boy or anything in between. Everything that we are doing, catch attention, and I get you to go do something. And that's it. So the way that happens is through sort of a long process sometimes. And any of you are familiar with it know that as you concept things and you come up with ideas, you come up with a lot of ideas. You know, driven by the bold was the tagline that we used for that. We had probably 100, 120 other options for that. Every time we write a headline, there's dozens and dozens of options. Every time we write a script, we write a lot of different scripts. We do a lot of executing and thinking on what it could possibly be, and then we narrow that down. And the way we narrow down from a bunch of bright, shining light bulb ideas to hopefully one bright, shining light bulb idea is through feedback. And sometimes that feedback is not positive, and sometimes that feedback is positive, and sometimes it's anywhere in between. No matter what it is, I like it. I'm a big fan of feedback. I'm a big fan of evaluation. I'm a big fan of having an honest environment where you can tell people, this is what I think of the work objectively. This is what I think is going to happen. I think that our objective is this, and we're meeting it or not meeting it because of this. And so feedback is a critical part of everything we do, and it comes from all directions. It comes from co-creators. The people I work with most are designers, art directors. I actually married a graphic designer. Just liked working with them so much, I figured I'd just marry one. So we're constantly going back and forth, and we'll pitch an idea, and does that work for this? Is that accomplishing this? Does it feel a little too soft? Does it feel a little bit too edgy? Whatever it is. So we're constantly going back and forth. The rest of my account team at the agency, the creatives might come up with something, the account people might come in and remind us that the client is struggling to get this message across, or the market is doing this, and could we do something that reacts to that a little bit better? We get feedback from the client. One of my clients is in the room today, and he can tell you for sure that we get feedback from the client, which we should. I know it's always the ad agency, stereotype of like, oh, here comes the client to kill all our fun. A good ad agency, a good advertising. Not you, just all the other ones. And if any of my other clients are watching this video, not you at all. But the stereotype is that's what happens. And good creatives, good marketing departments, good agencies will tell you that feedback is critical, and the way that's delivered is critical. The client knows things that we don't know. They have perspective that we don't have. It's valuable to have a third party coming up with your ideas and coming up with your campaigns. It's also really valuable to have the people who are on the ground every day and looking at it come back and look at those and bring them back to reality. So that feedback's critical. We're at a point now where we can do testing and research. We can send our ideas out to actual customers cheaply and easily through Google surveys and focus groups and things like that. So we get actual feedback directly from customers, which is great. And I get feedback from myself. I'm constantly evaluating the stuff that I'm writing, the stuff that I'm thinking about, deciding whether it's good enough, deciding whether it works, deciding whether it's communicating the message. So the feedback comes from everywhere. And I've got two pieces of feedback that I'm going to tell you are the two that I never ever want to get. The first one is I don't like it. This is the worst piece of feedback to get because A, you screwed up, and B, you don't know why. I don't like it. All right. You not like the color? Does it not say what it needs to say? What's wrong with it? The other piece of feedback that is never good to get is I like it. And I like it's nice because I made you happy, but I don't know if what we did works. When you tell me you like it, when you say I like that, this is good, this is cool, whatever, and that feedback comes from everybody, by the way. And that feedback comes from fellow creatives, that feedback comes from clients, it comes from everybody. I like it. When you say I like it or I don't like it, the problem is that you make it about you. You introduce your own bias, you introduce your own personal preference into the process of figuring out whether what we're doing is going to work. And that's an issue. Let me give you an example. When I start a project, I've got an entire stadium full of potential target audience that I can reach, right? 91,000 strong. Sometimes this actually is my target audience because we work for Runza. And at the beginning of a project, I like to think like, okay, if I nail this, if our team nails this and we hit this out of the park, all 91,000 are going to do what we want to do. We're going to catch the attention of all 91,000, and we're going to get all 91,000 to do the thing that we want them to do. That's my probably naive mindset at the beginning of everything. And within the course of creating, if we get feedback that says, I like it or I don't like it, it becomes a problem because that feedback, because it's personal, starts to ignore some really key things that chip away at this audience. The first thing it ignores is the brand. So if you come and if I show you something and you say, I like it or I don't like it, that has, whether you like it or don't like it, has nothing to do with what the brand looks like and feels like. If you like the picture and you like the headline and you think it's cool and that's something that would appeal to you, then neat. But that doesn't mean that it's something that the brand would say. It doesn't mean that it's the tone of voice of the brand. I talk differently than the ATV company and differently than the fishing companies and different than the Runza companies. So just because I like the way something sounds or looks or feels or whatever, doesn't mean that that's the way the brand would talk. And when you ignore the brand, you start to lose a little bit of that potential audience. You start to lose some people. The reason being is because you can catch people's attention, you can incite them to action, but if they don't recognize the place that that's coming from, if they don't recognize the brand that's talking to them and the relationship that they have with that company, they're not really going to care. Runza can pop onto the screen and scream something really loud and then tell you that they've got $1 cookies, and you can go, all right, I do like cookies, and they're only $1, but there's a little bit of you that's like, who is yelling at me about cookies? Why is this happening? And when that happens, we've got to disconnect, and we lose a little bit of trust, and we lose a little bit of our audience. I'm gonna grab some water here. I was trying to figure out what game that was from, by the way. It looks very cold and very uncomfortable. And I think it's the student section. I think that's what. So the other thing that happens when you make that feedback personal is you ignore the message. When you say I like it, or it's good, or that's cool, whatever, nothing in those words says, hey, the thing that you need to communicate with this piece, it's getting across. That isn't happening in there at all. And when that happens, you lose a little bit more audience. Now they don't know what you're talking about, they don't know why you're talking to them, they don't know what you want them to do, and they start to tune out and walk away. The third thing you ignore, and this is the most important, is you ignore anybody who's left. You ignore the target audience completely. Because you like something, and you like how it sounds, and you like how it feels, and you think that video's cool, and you think that headline's great, it's great. But you are not the target audience, ever. And that's a tough lesson for us to learn. I mean, if I was working on a client and the target audience was skinny, white, 32-year-old creative directors in Lincoln, Nebraska, I would not be the target audience. We're never, ever the target audience because we're biased, right? Company X wants me to sell something. I want Company X to sell a bunch of those things. I'm no longer in the target audience because I'm biased towards Company X. Nobody in our target audience cares about Company X. They don't know what they have to sell. They don't know why it's important that they get a lot done. They don't know the client personally and want them to succeed in their business. I do, so I'm biased. We're never the target audience, and when we substitute our own preferences and tastes and things like that for what the target audience might want, the target audience leaves, and we're left essentially with whoever's just cleaning up the mess. That's it. So the problem with this feedback is what it ignores. It ignores the brand, it ignores the message, it ignores the audience. So why do we keep doing this? I was trying to think about how we got here. I'm sure this isn't a totally new problem, but I think there's maybe some recent innovations. Oh no, I lost my emoji. Dang. Well, I'll just have to describe an emoji for you. So one thing we have done a lot, that stinks because that just looks like the letters O and C. It was just a happy face emoji. One thing we've done is simplified communication a lot, right? It's very easy to communicate complex emotions very quickly. We use shorthand all the time. We use emojis all the time. We're online. We're on our phones. We're not talking, thinking, taking time, deliberating, and saying something thoughtfully and articulately always. And that's okay. I mean, I'm a millennial who's railing against emojis, so that's, if you have that on your bingo card, then that's good. But it's good. I like that we've done that. It's important, but it also cuts out a lot of the sort of thoughtful articulation that we need. Like in the past, if I asked you to, express your feelings carefully for somebody that you loved that was your significant other, you might use something flowery and beautiful like this. And this is just going to suck because I got no emoji, I bet. But now you could express this with, oh, I did. Yes. The big just heart emoji, right? My wife sends me this one all the time, which is great because she loves me. But, she doesn't have to say anything. I don't have to say anything like that. We can just express that stuff quickly. We've conditioned ourselves to respond to things really quickly and really simply. If I asked you to talk about this election that we've got going on that everybody's so excited about and so positive about, and I asked you to thoughtfully, articulately tell me what you thought about that election, you could maybe say that. Or you could, and I know this one won't show up, it did. Or it's just a turd. That's it. That's the best way I could describe the election. And it's fine, it's great. Sometimes shorthand is good, but we use it so much and we condition ourselves that it's the best, easiest, quickest way. It's a little bit of a crutch that we have sort of shorthand communications. And think about what else there is out there that maybe conditions us to look at something and react right away with whether we like it or we love it. Maybe there's something that we're all looking at all the time. One of you, I'm sure, has looked at it while I've been talking. You all for sure looked at it before this thing started so you could avoid social interaction like I do. You definitely look at it in the stoplight in your car on the way over here because something might have happened since you left your office where you were also looking at it. We are, it is no secret, pretty entrenched in social media, which is fine. But social media asks us constantly to quickly scroll, absorb, think, react. Scroll, absorb, think, react. Picture, like it. Quote, like it. Bible verse, like it. Great. Video, love it. Thumbs up, heart, all, share, whatever. We are constantly looking at things and really quickly and briefly reacting to them. Nobody comes across a Facebook post and scrolls down and goes, picture of them at the beach. Wow, that's great. I'm glad they're at the beach. But maybe they got sunburned. No, I'm sure they're having fun. I'm going to like it. No, you're just like, beach, like it, quote, like it, picture cute kids, like it, we're good. We move on. Nothing is thoughtful and careful when we're doing things on social media. And so we just are sort of trained to react quick. We're trained to really viscerally react quick. And part of the reason we have to do that is because we don't have as much time as we need. A lot of digital tools, a lot of our processes, a lot of efficiencies that we found in the world of marketing have made things way, way quicker. Sorry. And that's great. It's great that we can produce things quicker. It's great that we can turn things around quicker. When we need to do something, we can generally get it up and moving in a couple days, and that's awesome. I have yet to find an app or a technology or a process that makes feedback better when it's quicker. It doesn't happen. But what happens is because the whole timeline gets condensed, because we know we can do things quicker, feedback happens more quickly too. So we condition ourselves to react quickly. We don't have as much time as we used to, and we communicate really simply, and that leads to feedback like, I like it, or I don't like it. So, I don't like whiners. So I don't like people who have a problem and don't have a solution. So I'm going to give you two possible solutions for this. First one is to demand a smarter process. The process by which we present work and present ideas and gather feedback can get a little bit broken, can get a little bit condensed, and it can get a little bit old. Here's how I think you ought to do it. Number one, present the idea. Whoever came up with it, whoever's bringing it to the table, they walk through what they did. Number two, everybody in the room ask questions. Why'd you do it this way? What were you thinking when this happened? How did you come to this conclusion? Number three, deliberate. This is the most important step in this thing. Take time away from the process. When I first started at Swanson Russell, I was working on something I was super frustrated, and we had this sort of venerable old creative director, kind of a hall wanderer guy. He just sort of appears in your moment of need. And I was frustrated, and he's like, what's going on? And I was like, I just can't get this thing. He goes, well, how long have you been looking at it? And I was like, all day and yesterday and whatever. So we'll put it away. I'm like, well, I'm not going to put it away. It's got to get done. He's like, no, put it away. I'm like, well, what do I do? And he's like, do something else. Think about something else. Go do something different. That's what I would recommend you do when you have an idea that you need to react to, when you have a campaign that you need to react to, when you have communications that you need to react to. Walk away from it. Don't make the decision in the meeting where it was presented. Don't make the decision the moment it was presented. Walk away. Put it away. Go do something else. Sleep on it. And this is why we need time in the process. And then get everybody back together. Get back together. Talk about what you think, what you've observed over that time. And then my ideal process would be that starts all over again. So once we come back to back together and we say, okay, here's what we need to work on, then we go back, we fix it, we come back, we present it again. You guys ask more questions, we take some time away, then we get back together, and we repeat this process until we get it right. And then we have to ask the question, how do we know when we've gotten it right? And that's the second recommendation I have for you, which is ask, don't tell. The other way we can make feedback better, in my opinion, is most of it is expressed sort of as a declarative, right? I like this works, this is cool. I like that guy's voice, I like that song, that's neat, all right, good. Those are all declarative statements. When you start feedback process with a statement, you essentially end the discussion, right? If you come in and you go, this isn't on brand. Okay, well, I guess it's not on brand. But if you come in and you start with a question, you start a conversation. Conversation becomes, do we feel like this is on brand? Why do you feel like this is on brand? Does it work for our brand? Okay, now everybody else is going to talk. Now everybody else is going to contribute. Instead of telling what we think, we're going to ask about what it is that we're concerned about. You can ask questions like, does this make people stop and care? This is the get attention part. Well, let's look at it. What about this would make people stop and care? What about this poster would make people stop and care? Does it say what we need to say? Is it on message? Are we communicating what we need to communicate? Does it sound like us? Is it on brand? Does it have our look and our feel and our tone and our voice? Does it set us apart? Can other people do what we're doing right now, or are we the only ones who can say this? And finally, the most important question, why or why not? All those are yes and yes, no. But if we can why or why not those questions and have a discussion about why something is on message, why something's on brand, why something catches attention, then we're going to have a good discussion that's going to give your creative team good feedback. And with my creatives that I work with, when I'm working with designers and other writers and things like that, it's my goal to present my feedback that way, not just go, all right, your creative director likes it, so it gets to move on to the next phase. That's cheapening the process. I need to ask them, does that sound like Runza? Does that sound like Swanson Russell through agency communications? Things like that. So, an ask, don't tell. Which brings us back to our delicious cabbage-infused Runza sandwich. I've written about cabbage more than I thought I would in my career. So I told you at the beginning of this that I do really like those signs that I write. I think they're really fun. But I would also say that the reason I like them is not because I personally think they're interesting. The reason I like them is because they meet the criteria. Does it make people stop and care? Yeah, okay, it's kind of funny, it sticks out, you might stop, look at that, go, oh, okay, that's fun. Does it say what we need to say? Yeah, this was actually just for a promotion that was $1 drinks. And the first line is $1 pop, so I'd say we got the message pretty clear. Sometimes the message is very simple. Does it sound like us? Yes. Runza's brand is all about Midwestern, fresh, homemade food. Only in the Midwest, and take it from someone who went to school in Texas and got made fun of incessantly for this, do we call it pop. Only place we call it pop, and it's ridiculous. People in other places think we're very silly. In Texas, they call everything Coke. So they'll say, I want a Coke. What kind of Coke do you want? A Dr. Pepper. That is way dumber than pop. But when you're the only guy from Nebraska, you deal with it. But it does sound like us. Their brand is about being Midwestern. Their brand is about understanding the people around here, knowing that we grew up here. It's a family restaurant here in Nebraska, and so yeah, pop sounds like us. And does it set us apart? I think so. The other company that offers a $1 drink promotion in the summer is McDonald's. McDonald's can pay Beyonce to write a song about $1 iced tea and put $1 billion on it and make all the money in the world, and that's great. That's not us. That's not Runza. We're not going to be able to do that. But does what we do stick out from that? And I think it does. So when people ask me, do I like writing these signs and is that fun and whatever, I say, yeah, I do like it, but I don't tell them why. The why is because this is one thing of many, many, many things that we have made for Runza since my team took over in 2009. Every month since October of 2010, Runza has had a positive month, year over year, positive sales. It's not because of the marquee lines, I promise. It's not even just because of the marketing. It's because they're a really good brand and they do a great job and they have a great product. But the marketing doesn't hurt. What we're doing is working. It's 6 straight years. While a lot of other fast food companies were up and down or way down or straight out of business, Runza has gone up every single month since October of 2010. And so that's That's what matters to me. But what I like doesn't matter. What matters is what they like and what works. Runza's audience likes what we're doing. They react positively to it. And Runza's sales have gone up every month for 6 years. So it works. And when that stuff happens, that's what I like even more than a clever headline. And that's it. Thanks.